not for nothing, but I'm so glad due to COVID, we can't be in the same room and you can't smell me right now because I absolutely reek of garlic. Like a vampire would drop dead. Okay, you too?
I mean, probably garlic too. I had garlic for lunch, so
Like literally just straight up garlic.
yeah, I just ate it.
I made, okay, first of all, hi, we're live. This is going to be us talking about a whole lot of shows, but first, garlic. I made for dinner, well, for my husband, I made fish. I'm vegan, so not for me. I made like these roasted Brussels sprouts and this broccoli puree situation. And on the side, I made this sauce, which was like crushed raw garlic and then a bunch of other stuff. And I swear, like, I will be sweating garlic for the next week. Anyways, we've got a whole huge docket. I sent Kate like a very brief agenda. Well, not brief, a lengthy agenda, but without like really any notes in it of what we're going over tonight. So work with me, Kate. We're going to go back and forth on everything we're going to go over. First, some quick news. Then I'm going to go over Married at First Sight. Then you.
Anna's Green Gables.
And then I'm going to go over me holding down the fort when it comes to DCCW, aka watching Riverdale and Batwoman at gunpoint. Kate's going to go over.
WandaVision.
I was wanting to start that. I'm so excited. Then I'm going to talk about 911 Lodestar and Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. They're paired together because I don't have much about either. And then Kate will say stuff about.
I will do Miss Scarlet and the Duke.
I've seen people on my timeline talking about that. Then I'm going to talk about Bridgerton book 2 and in particular my strong feelings about how they should cast Kate. And then Kate, this Kate.
I have very strong feelings about that as well. And then I'm going to talk about all the creatures, uh, all creatures great and small.
And then I will go over The Good Doctor, and I was scared to put it on the agenda, but what I'm meaning to say is actually in the title of this video. The Bachelor, aka that will be Salty Cammie Corner, because I have some thoughts. And that will close us out for the day. So that's our agenda right off the top. The only thing I have under news is that the Bold Type got renewed for the 5th and final season. You may remember that as the show that I watched like 4 seasons of, and when trying to talk about it, could not remember a single character's name, not one, not any. No, I think I remember like Jane's name, and that's it. I'm like, I could tell you their exact storyline. Like, granted, I'm not very passionate about the show. It's not like something I'm like in the fandom of or whatever. But, like, I could tell you their like storylines and like describe their character, but like gun to my head, I couldn't just like off the top of my head remember a single character's name. It was crazy. Anyways, that got renewed for a 5th and final season. I'm mad at pretty much everything they did with every single character, so I think it's fair that it's ending. Glad it had a good run. It is, and I'm not going to get into like feminist theory today, but it is essentially the most quintessential third wave feminism show imaginable, aka the kind of feminism that's like wear heels and red lipstick and stomp on the patriarchy by wearing heels and red lipstick. So that's that show. And I'll be talking about the 5th and final season when it comes out. So, Kate, the thing is, I'm a bold-faced liar.
You lied.
I really did. And like, I lied on camera to you and God and everyone else. And it's literally just like on the internet, me lying to your face last week when I said, I'm not
I saw the tweet. I said I saw the tweet and it just said you lied, and my brain immediately went to John Mulaney skit where he's like, you know, like a liar.
And
It's like,
so the thing is, what happened was somehow, some way, I got to the weekend, like Saturday morning rolls up, and I sat there and I looked at what I had to watch. And you know how like girls look in their girls and guys, let's not be sexist, look in their closet and they're like, I don't have anything to wear, like while facing a wall full of clothes. You know what I mean? That was me somehow on Saturday morning. I can't remember the last time I felt like that, where like genuinely, like if you look at my series guide, like you know, like when I say I'll put something on a list, I actually do put something on a list. Like I have a whole like app that tracks like every TV show I watch, want to watch, have watched, which what episode I'm on, blah blah blah, all of that. So I have like this whole thing where I've got like list of what I'm currently watching. Like I have a whole closet full of shows to watch, I promise you. And Saturday morning, I'm like making breakfast and I'm like, I don't have anything to watch. And there's like not one but two episodes of Married at First Sight out. And like maybe I won't watch both of them. I'll just watch the first one because only the first one's on the Lifetime app. So I'll just like watch that. Maybe I'll even just watch like the intro of the first one just so I can like see who's cast and where it's at. Like that's how I was like rationalizing this. So then 2 episodes later, I was like, oh, I lied when I said that I wasn't going to watch this, but I did. And here's the thing. Here's the good thing. Let's look at the silver lining, Kate. My lie is ultimately going to help me be honest, and I'm going to tell you why. While I lied about whether or not I would watch this show, this also gives me a chance to make predictions about which couples will stay together and not stay together while it's still new. So it's not going to be like we're at this, 7 episodes have aired, it's really near the end, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I've only watched 1 episode. I can make predictions. You know what I mean? When I may have heard spoilers later. It's early on. I can make completely uninformed predictions. You have it right here on camera, how wrong I'm going to be. Um, so it's really just like ultimately honesty in the end if you think about it. um I'm being the bigger person in regards to myself.
ah, ah. So you're justifying your poor actions. I see. In retrospect. Okay. I
the
follow.
the means justify the ends. So
Bridgerton has taught us otherwise. Get it together, Cammie.
that's true. Bridgerton's taught us a few things. Imagine my mild horror when my 17-year-old niece told me this week that she was going to start watching Bridgerton. And I was like, I mean, I know it's the number one most watched show on Netflix right now, but like there is a lot of, I believe the term I used was there is a lot of adult romantic content in that. And then she got distracted by TikTok and didn't watch past the first 10 minutes. So like we're fine. It's fine. We're fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go through all the couples of this season of Married at First Sight, and I'm going to tell you whether I think they're going to stay together or not. First, meet Jacob and Haley. Let's go to Jacob and Haley. So, Jacob is 38. He's a senior IT analyst. Also, this is set in Atlanta, Georgia. So, like, really, I kind of like have to watch it legally, right? Mostly it's set in Atlanta, Georgia, because this is pretty much the only state you can film anything in right now. Also, this entire show is filmed as if like quarantine didn't exist. You pretty much never see a mask. I don't know why nobody's saying anything about it. It's really, anyway, it's the most Georgia thing you've ever seen. So, Jacob is 38. He's a senior IT analyst, and Haley is 28. She's an account executive. So there is a 10-year age gap between them. That's the first time the show has done that, to my knowledge, and I've watched all 12 seasons. Um, I think they're going to last, actually. She seems very mature. He seems, kind of fun and quirky, and like I think they're gonna vibe and get along. I don't foresee their relationship having a lot of drama, and I would even go so far as to say that I think even if they were to break up, I think it'd be like a very undramatic breakup of just like, oh, we tried, it was cool, you're cool, I'm cool, we're gonna go our separate ways. So I have high hopes for them. The next one here is Virginia and Vincent and Brianna. Sorry, Virginia is another one. She's next on the list that I'm looking at. So Brianna is 28. Vincent also 28. He's an auto broker or like auto salesperson. I don't know why they call it auto broker. She's an engineer. She is like self-described as like very like bossy and organized and like structure and likes things a certain way, like very engineer. And Vincent is like an entrepreneur, risk taking. He has his own business. Like, you know, he's also sounds like he's doing very well at it too, even though it was like, you know, kind of a financial risk. He's now like reaping the rewards of it. They are going to do very well. This is the one, the one I listed first is the one that I think is most likely to last. These two might be the ones I most want to last, if that makes sense. So I have high hopes.
Yeah.
Next, we have, so both of those I'm going to put it in the category of yes, I do think they will make it in the end. Next, we're going to do a twofer. The one that you see on the left is Eric and Virginia. Eric is a commercial airline pilot. The lengths they go to avoid saying he's a pilot for Delta, as if every commercial pilot in this state does not fly for Delta, is really funny. Like, just say Delta. Just say it. Just say it. You'll be fine. Anyways, he's a Delta pilot, which is just really funny because the last Bachelor was also a Delta pilot and they hyped it up as if that was like the greatest job in the world. And he's like basically a magic carpet. And then with Eric, they're just like, yeah, he's an airline pilot. You know, it's kind of a drag because he flies a lot, so he'll be away a lot. Anyways, so they made an interesting choice here because they matched him with somebody a little bit younger than him. He's 34, she's 26. You know, it's not quite the 10-year age gap as the other one, but I think this might be the second largest age gap they've matched anybody with. And she is like, she actually acts younger than her age. Like, she is kind of nightlife, fun loving, whatever. And their hope is that she's able to essentially, for lack of a better way to say it, their hope is that she will keep herself entertained despite the fact that he's not home a lot. And I think that's true. And I consequently think that they won't last. Like, I don't have high hopes for them. I think they have the potential of being cute. So I'm not like hating them right now, but there's just some red flags. Like, they're not giving them a very good edit. They're really strongly trying to like push this narrative that she's an alcoholic. So I don't know about that. Then the ones that you see on the right, so girl in the red dress, like bright red dress, that's Chris and Paige. I am very strongly putting them in the category of I do not think they will last. So both of these two, I don't think they will last. Both of these two, I don't really care one way or the other. Like, I don't really dislike any of the couples this season so far. But Chris is 27, and if you listen to him, you would think he's like Atlanta's youngest billionaire or something. He talks like he is some super, you know, busy and successful CEO of whatever. And I truly do not, like, if you read between the lines and actually pay attention, I do not think he does. I think he's just like talking mad game about his money. And he has made this big deal of like he wants his wife to be super attractive. If he's not attracted to her, the second he sees her, he's not gonna like her, whatever. And like Paige is beautiful, but I feel like all it's gonna take is him getting mad like one time and he'll like not be attracted to her anymore. And he has a history of volatile relationships and he just seems like absolutely crazy. Paige, I can't really get a read on because on like one hand, she'll be like, yeah, I want to be a submissive wife and go to church 3 times a week and whatever. And then the next second, she'll just be talking about like the craziest sex things. And like I realize the two are not mutually exclusive, but like there's something very Gemini about her. Like I don't know if she is a Gemini. She's 25, so she's young, so that could be part of it. But there's something very like whiplashy about her. Like one second she's like, whatever is written will be. And then the next second she's like going straight crazy, which maybe that'll work for him. Like maybe that's the type of thing that'll like keep him really interested. But I just feel like there's going to be like a mad fight between them and they're not going to like each other anymore. She's really pretty though. So if he is unkind, she can do better. All right. Last couple. And this is like the wild card. This is the one I don't know yet really what to predict. So I'm just going to default to predicting that they won't last. But I kind of want them to win me over. This is Ryan and Clara. Clara is a 27-year-old flight attendant. Ryan is, I don't know how old he is. He's a project manager for a software company. There was like a few moments where I found them super cute and they seemed to be vibing so hard. And then there were just like a few comments that both of them made that kind of threw red flags for me. The way he talked about marriage a couple times was like, I feel like maybe you kind of have this like super strict mindset and you're not willing to like stray from, like there was something kind of young in the way he talked about it, like lack of flexibility when he talked about it. And he uses like very flowery language, which sometimes I find people use to cover up something. He's also said like he's never told somebody that he loves them before, which is fine, but it feels like maybe he's a little early in this and maybe not ready to like marry somebody at first sight. But I don't know. There were just moments where they vibe. So I'm going to predict that they'll stay apart. But I think like if all the stars aligned, they could kind of like compensate for each other's like weird quirks and red flags that I'm picking up and be a cute couple. Do you have a favorite?
Uh, one of the first two.
One of the first two. So either this one or
It was
this one.
the large. Yeah,
Let's put us back because I'm not sure.
I
That may
think
have actually
maybe
cut
the
off our
big.
own audio.
You like flip this.
Oh, I did flip us. Should I flip us back? We'll just leave it this way. Try something new. Anyways, I think Kate's frozen. I heard that
I don't care.
one of the first two is your favorite. Okay. Well, that's the end of my Married at First Sight confession and prediction. And I am so excited to hear you talk about these
Anna
two.
Frank.
Take it
So I
away.
haven't seen the show. I didn't start watching the show yet. I've only read the first book and I started the second book. To say about it, it's very much just like the first one feels a lot like the Canadian version of Little Women's first book, half of the book. I mean, it has some really great things. There is plenty of like psychological deep dive you could go into. And I will say, from what I have heard about the show, I know there's a lot of people that are probably like, I've heard things people say it's too dark of an adaptation or like it's not accurate from like one second to another. I don't know yet because I haven't seen it, but to be honest, I can see where it could be dark and be perfectly from the book because there's a lot of things that she talks about that are actually quite dark, but because it's from this child's perspective, there's like innocent glaze over that you don't really understand. And part of that's because it's from the perspective of a kid, and the other part of it's for the fact that it's targeted for children. So I'm interested to see if, as the books go along, the darkness that she kind of has gone through is more clearly stated or anything like that. And I'm excited for the obvious romance that's going to happen with her and Gilbert and see how the whole thing works out. It's a really interesting story. They're like 16, they're just all like, okay, now we're teachers. But that's fine.
There's a pretty sharp time jump. I remember last week when I was trying to like talk you through where they are at different, like in different books, and I was kind of getting them confused because I was like, wait, they can't possibly be going from this to this, but they kind of do. I will say I'm very happy that you're on the second book because it's my favorite, and the Netflix version of the show definitely does not try to follow the books exactly, but I think that's what makes it great because there's the old Canadian version of the show which does follow the books pretty directly, and there was just no need at this time to like remake it. It was so beautiful, it was so perfect. Like I would absolutely recommend you watch it if you're okay with stuff that's not made super recently, you know what I mean? So it's like it's not going to be the highest budget thing, but it's
Mhm.
extremely accurate thing, and the casting is wonderful, right? But the Netflix
Well, and
show,
I
what now?
know Megan Fellows plays Anne.
Yeah.
I was just
And
saying that I know Megan Fellows plays Anne in the old one, and I like her in Rain.
yes. Yeah, she's incredible. And the guy who plays Gilbert, his name is Jonathan Crombie. He's since passed, but I think it was like the main thing he ever acted in. But the people that they have playing them in the Netflix show, I think, are equally wonderful. It's just a very different take on it. But I can't wait for you to finish the second book. I hope it was everything I
I
cracked
will
it
let
up
you
to
know when
be.
I get the compliment.
Sorry, I'm interrupting. Audio delay. It is what it is. All right.
I've interrupted.
No, go ahead. Please do interrupt because that's the only way you'll get a word in edgewise because the audio delay.
No, I was just saying that I've interrupted, so don't worry about interrupting me. But yeah, I mean, I'll let you know when I finish book two.
Awesome. The romance just like goes from little hints of 16-year-old romance to like Pride and Prejudice levels, but just in a very different context. All right. Well, you see, it's a tough job, but somebody has to do it. And that job is holding down the
What is
entire.
that picture from Riverdale? It's not a sci-fi show. It's really
Is that a what? Okay.
What
Okay.
was that?
No, go ahead.
I was just asking what that picture was because that's just a lot. It looks like they're going to space. Like it looks like they were pretending they were season 5 of Agents of Shield. I don't know what that picture is.
The thing is, Kate, is they are one of the last remaining pieces of DCCW TV right now, so they just have to be as DC as possible. Um, they are CW's attempt to have an edgy show right now. And they've gotten like so dark as well. Like they're absolutely ridiculous. Like the first episode of the latest season was just simultaneously so ridiculous of like two of the main characters are like desperately trying to be like simultaneously prom queen and queen. Like Tony and Cheryl are trying to be prom queen and queen together, which is very cute. They're like in a relationship, whatever. So love that. They're my favorite ship on the show. So there's just like that kind of like ridiculous high school drama. And then at the same time, they're like literally trying to figure out who did a snuff film, like an on film murder that's being sold. And so they like also stage a snuff film to figure out who's buying snuff films. And I'm just like, are teenagers watching that? Like, I know, I get it. I'm grandma, I'm old. Like this, I've I've made my peace with it, but like this show is so dark, but also like completely nonsensical and childish at the same time. As is all CWDC
To watch
TV.
her prove that I like lurk on your Twitter, your tweet this today about like Twilight, just it kind of this kind of like uh comparison just makes me firmly believe that Bella Swan is actually one of the most accurate 17-year-old characters ever written. Because, yeah, she went with a vampire. What are you gonna do? Well, like, she was also incredibly awkward and, like, said things like a 17-year-old.
That's a really good point. And I think when characters who are playing teenagers are annoying and childish, it means that they're written correctly because teenagers are annoying and childish. They're not adults. But yes, I the new Princess Diana movie had cast Kristen Stewart to play Princess Diana. The movie is not like a biopic, it's just covering the one weekend where she chooses to leave Charles. And I think it's going to be incredible. And I can't wait to see it. But when it was announced that Kristen Stewart would be the one playing her, a bunch of people were like, Bella Swan from Twilight, literally Princess Diana. What is the world coming to? I'm a movie critic. Tee hee. It should be somebody accomplished, like Tilda Swinton or like, like that kind of bullshit. And I think Kristen Stewart's going to make a great Princess Di. And I thought so even before the pictures came out. Now the pictures came out and she actually looks like it. So people who have no concept of stage makeup, object permanence, etc., can now actually physically see her looking like Princess Diana and know that that's possible. Yes, I agree. Bella Swan was a pretty accurate teenager. And I say that as somebody who was never a Twilight fan, nor was I a Twilight hater necessarily. I guess I don't know. Didn't read the books, but I did watch the movies through like an odd turn of events. But this poster very much looks like sci-fi Twilight vibes. I'm definitely excited for season 5 of Riverdale. Based on the first episode, I'm still definitely excited for it. But this thing is ridiculous. Like, this is like Pretty Little Liars level of ridiculous, but somehow with even more murder, which doesn't make sense because that's like the whole premise of Pretty Little Liars. And something about this just feels like more grotesque murder-y. Always pushing the boundaries. But this and Batwoman, which was like good this week, it was okay. Like, I'm going to continue watching Batwoman and have patience as it finds its feet again. But I would say after 2 episodes of the latest season of Batwoman and 1 episode of the latest season of Riverdale, I'm like, oh, Batwoman is definitely more quality than Riverdale, but I'm more excited to watch Riverdale. So we'll see where that goes. I now toss it back to you, Kate, for your next show. Unless Kate is frozen. Kate is frozen. Okay, we will then move to 911 Lone Star. Now, this is one that I'm more excited to watch more of now that there has been. Kate, are you still frozen? Well, let me know when you're not frozen. 911 Lone Star is one I have been like kind of not necessarily dragging the show, but dragging the fact that I'm watching the show. Did I? Kate, are you muted? Can you hear me? Because I think you're unfrozen now. Hello? I will happily continue talking about 911 Lone Star. But can you hear me? Okay, left. Okay. We'll give that a second.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? There must be like a delay or something. Okay. 911 Lone Star, I was kind of like, I don't watch shows about Texas. I don't watch cop procedurals. I don't watch anything that has to do with this. I'm only watching it for Gina Torres. So you can See her up there. Um, After 2 episodes, I actually am kind of starting to like it. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like quirky. I like the side characters. I like, just the random 911 operators they have on there. It's been kind of fun. And it's been kind of set up to where, like, all it would take is like one good romance in there. Here, let's put it like this. No, let's do like this. There we go. Perfect. Okay. All it would take is like one good romance in this show for me to be like, yes, I'm in it. I'm not just in it for Gina Torres. Like, I'm in it, in it. That's kind of where we're at with it. It's kind of won me over. I think Kate may be back. Let's see. Kate, are you back? Kate, can you hear me? Hello.
I am back, but can you hear me? Still says I'm in standby. Oh, there I
We
am.
I can see and hear you. Can you see and hear us?
Okay. I don't know what happened. There was like a minute long delay.
Oh, really? That's crazy. Okay, so that's why we could still
Yeah, I
see
can
and
see you
hear
now.
you, but it looked like you weren't responding. So it's like maybe you can't hear us. I don't know. And then it said you left and then it said you rejoined. So I don't know. But I went over 911 Lone Star. It is your turn to go over your next show. So I will toss it to you.
Okay, so going back up, I was just going to quickly talk about WandaVision. So I haven't watched the Marvel movies all that much. I did watch Shield, of course, but I know movies that I figured I probably could watch WandaVision, and it's very trippy. It's pretty good, but it's really trippy. So there's 3 episodes out, and it's like the half-hour long episodes. Um, and each episode so far has kind of done a different generation of sitcoms. So it's very much like so the first episode was like 50s sitcom, almost like I Love Lucy kind of stuff. And so each episode has a very different style of humor and stuff like that. But then there's these like tiny little moments throughout each episode where it definitely, as we've gone along, there's more and more moments for each episode. And so like the end of the third episode, you actually get to see a good bit more about like what actually is going on outside of this like sitcom, like alternate reality or whatever. I don't really know, but it's really interesting. And I'm also slightly terrified because spoiler, she just had twin babies in the show. And then I'm like, oh no, they're probably like, if this is like a villain, they're probably after the kids because like all the people have been subliminally messaging them to have children throughout
Mm-hmm.
this. And I'm like, what are they going to do? Don't do anything bad to the kids.
Do they show the kids on the show? Because I've never seen kids in any of the previews, but maybe I just haven't seen all the previews.
Yeah. So like there's babies were born in the third episode.
Oh, okay. Are they releasing it a season at a time or an episode at a time?
It's so they released the first 2 episodes and then it's just an episode at a time.
Okay. It kind of gave me like major I Love Lucy vibes, and I
Yeah.
couldn't in my mind from watching the preview get that to like mash up with superhero stuff, but I'm sure like if I watched it, it would make sense.
Only slightly does it kind of match up with superhero stuff. Like they
Okay.
have, so when they have to use their powers for each different version, they have like a more gimmicky, like a gimmicky filtration of how that would work. So like she does the float, like the plates float in one episode, and like it smacks them in the face, and it's very much like, oh, that's like a 50s, 60s slapstick humor. And then when they get into the 70s, it's far more like the 70s style humor and the camera framing changes and stuff like that. So everything else. There's also like in each episode, there's like this fake commercial where they talking about like a product or something like
I
that.
love
And
when
the third one,
shows
there's
do
Hy.
that.
Yeah, and there's the third one had what they called Hydra Soak, which is just Hydra soap. And I was like, Phil Coulson, is this you? Are you okay? From season 4 with the soap.
Okay, twist my arm. I will watch it. It sounds cute. It sounds
Mm,
funny, which I need more funny shows in my lineup. And I know it would sound like I watch like a lot of funny shows because watch a lot of reality TV, but let me tell you, it's not comedic.
nope.
You think I would like it, right? I really love Wanda. I've like cosplayed Scarlet Witch before. Like I'm a big fan. I just wasn't sure about this show's specific context.
It's very much like when you're watching Legends of Shield, because I didn't watch the full thing, but I watched an episode or two of Legends of Shield or Legends of Tomorrow, or when
Mhm.
you watch like season 7 of Shield. There's a lot of just you just kind of take it as it is and watch for Easter eggs to try to figure out what the heck is going on.
Okay. Well, I will quickly wrap up my little bit. I did 911, Lone Star 911, or whatever they're calling that show. I'll also mention Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Watch that this week. I like the episode. I like the episode now, oddly, now that she's broken up and single again. I'm not necessarily wanting her with Simon or anything, but she's like, they had her break up, and then immediately now she's going in this like chaotic downward spiral reminiscent of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, if you ever watched that show. And I kind of don't love that they're having her go into this downward spiral directly after a breakup. I know we're supposed to infer that the breakup was the beginning part of the cycle. It didn't cause the cycle. Her dad literally dying caused the cycle, but something about having the breakup happen first, I didn't love. I almost would have rather seen, and I don't even ship them, but I would have rather seen them stay together and try to like be together during this downward spiral and break up perhaps at some point during it or at rock bottom or whatever. But having it directly follow the breakup kind of just makes it seem like she's going crazy while not in a relationship. I don't know. But I like this episode better than when they were together. So maybe a downward spiral is exactly what the plot needed. I now toss it back to you for these pretty people.
Miss Scarlet. Okay, so I today or this week is the second episode, and it kind of continued on setting up a lot of the dynamics and everything. So at the end of the last episode, this guy named Rupert proposed to her, but he didn't want to propose to her, and she didn't want to accept him. So they kind of came up with this more like business venture where he funds her PI business, and that's not the guy in the picture. So the guy in the picture is one of the, I guess, inquisitors or investigators in the police department. Um, and they're kind of family friends, and she kind of unwittingly, oh, so he unwittingly helps her in her PI business, but then he also like will occasionally send her to jail because she's breaking the law. She is hindering a police investigation. And they have a fun dynamic. A awkward guy, and his mother is like the landlord, and she doesn't like her because they didn't want to get married. And so there's a whole bunch of like fun dynamics. This one definitely had more focus on the actual mystery of the week than it did last time. I will say their mysteries are really not that hard to figure out. I
Okay,
mean,
but
it's an
you
hour
said
long
that figuring out that
episode.
Penelope was Lady Whistledown was not that hard to figure out. And while I kind of called it early on, I felt proud of myself and thought it was hard to figure out.
I
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know because I've talked to the people now, and they're like, "Yeah, we had no idea." Yeah, I don't know. I yeah,
Maybe you're just good
the
at
this
mysteries.
one, I don't know, because this one felt like it was yelling right at me. Because it was like the opening sequence, she's trying to get a job, and then like a murder or accused, right, like caught red-handed guy has to run from a scene, and then it's very quickly revealed that it's partially a gay plot line, and because when it was set, they all had to conceal if they were gay, and so that was interesting, and it actually brought in Rupert. It was really fun, but after that, I was like, okay, cool. So he didn't kill him. Um, it was suicide. Also, the wife is a vindictive little. Uh. So and then there was 30 minutes left, and I was like, okay, this whole other detail about opium that's not necessary is going to happen. All right, cool.
It's always opium. In any Victorian
Yeah,
drama, somebody's going to be addicted to opium, just like legally.
yeah, it just has to happen.
Well, this one sounds really interesting, and I've seen some other people, like on my timeline, also started watching it. So I'm like, maybe next time I'm like, I have nothing to watch. I'll start this instead of another reality TV show. Maybe, maybe. No promises this time. We know what happens when I
Mm-hmm.
promise.
Maybe. Okay.
Well, back to our agenda. I'm going to use this as
Bridgerton book two.
yes. I'm going to use this as the stand-in. For Bridgerton book two. So I have almost finished Bridgerton book two. Like I'm spoilers, plug your ears for 5 seconds, children, if you don't want to hear spoilers of a romance novel. I'm past the part where they've gotten together and both have told each other they love each other and the carriage collapse happened and he rescued her and like after all that. So I'm like very close to end the book. I can't imagine too much happens in like the last couple chapters, but maybe something does. For example, I suspect she gets pregnant.
Like the epilogue.
What now?
Are you basically in the epilogue? Because that pretty much is the end.
Yeah, I got like 20 pages left. So yeah, basically. Like I'm at the part of the book, like I just
Okay.
haven't got there yet. I was literally reading the last part of the book, like the carriage collapse, right before we went live just now, which is why we started a few seconds late because I was like, okay, let me just like get to the end. Like I know she's not going to die, but like let me just read and be sure. Like you know how it is. So
Yeah,
wrapped up that. So I'm basically at the end. I'm sure there's like a happy little denouement that ties it all together with a bow, and she gets pregnant, and he doesn't die, and etc. etc. Happily ever after.
yeah.
It was lovely. Here's the thing: I did skip book one. I I could go back and read it, but I watched the first season of Bridgerton. And I feel like the book isn't going to be as good, but I may go back and read it. But I've read books from this author and from this like series before. It just happened to be the prequels, which is interesting reading this, having read the prequels, because there's this moment, I think it's in the prequels. I have to go back and figure out exactly which book it is, because initially I thought it was a book in the Bridgerton 8, but I don't think it is. But basically, the plot of the book, and I'll have to go through, it's one of the prequels, I swear, where one of the guys, and I think it's a Bridgerton guy, I'm like fairly certain it's a Bridgerton guy. He basically like had has custody of this girl, except for she's not much younger than him, and she like becomes his love interest, and he has to like bring her out to society. But there's a scene that I always thought was just like random and weird to put in, wherein she's on a farm, she's walking like alongside this fence, and she's like, look what I can do, and she sticks her hand in a tree, like in a hole in the tree, and it's a beehive, and she pulls it out and her hand is covered in honey, and he like freaks out on her. Is it a book in this series? I'm like, have you already read what I'm talking about right
I
now?
haven't read it yet, but just the act, like the mention of bees anywhere in this series, I know it's going to be on the edge of ridiculous.
Right. Okay. It's that. He like freaks out and like thinks she's going to die. It's like this whole big thing. And when reading that book, I was like, this is kind of weird, but okay, whatever. Like, it's weird for her to stick her hand in a beehive. Like, so yes, I get him being
Right.
afraid, but like the reaction was just like a little over the top. And the use of bees is like, okay, here's the thing. I've read a lot of romance books. I've read a lot of like, oh, I'm terrified because she's kidnapped by pirates. I'm terrified because she's stuck on a cliff. I'm terrified because she, like she's running away on a wild horse or gonna be trampled by elephants or just like something like that. But just like bees in particular, I would have never like picked that as like a stereotypical like damsel in distress moment. Like, yes, I understand being afraid, but it's not like usually the type of thing that creates like a very like heightened feeling in a book just because it's so small an insect. That is why it stood out to me in the previous one. And then like reading this book, I was like, got it. Okay, that's just like a motif she's using throughout the whole series. Anyways, it's in a prequel. I'm like 85% sure. I'll look it up before next week. Speaking of bees being ridiculous, like the book was good, don't get me wrong, but the whole thing where he was like trying to suck venom out of the bee sting, like near her chest, and then like the mothers come by. I I love a good forced marriage. I do, but that was like a bit much.
Oh, I know. Like, it's my favorite out of the four I've read, but that's not to say that there isn't ridiculousness. I just think with the ridiculousness, they're the least toxic of the four. Because I'm sad to say, but I think the novel for Colin and Penelope has some toxicity that's not necessary. And
Really?
Benedict does some things. Yeah, well, like he's very demanding, and like he finds out she's Whistledown, and is like a real big jerk about it. And like, I, I mean, when you look at like Anthony and Kate, they start off as like enemies, but really, she's just like defending her sister, and then very quickly figures out, no, he's a pretty good guy. Like, I'll be friends with him. I won't love you. In a way, I'm like, okay, at least we're saying our things, whereas Simon's just like, I'm gonna bold faced lie. And then like Colin Colin plays it so hot and cold in his book that I got so aggravated with him and like demanding she quit. Actually jealousy from his part. I'm like, no, Colin, my bean, my little boy from season one is not allowed to be this big of a jerk because of jealousy. That's not, no, you can't have that. And then Benedict wants his love interest to be his mistress. And like 90% of the book is him being like, be my mistress. And she's like, no. And I'm like, but it's like Cinderella.
Why do I feel like I may have read the Benedict one? I feel like they're going to change the Benedict thing completely in the Netflix series. I'll say that for sure. Like the way they've set it up, I feel like they're going to change his completely.
Because when I read the first two or three before the show came out, I was able to see like the pure book fandom pretty much, and I could tell that a lot of people like Simon and Daphne, but the biggest like fandom I saw was Kate and Anthony,
Mm-hmm.
and then Penelope and Colin. Um, I never saw anything about Benedict and Sophie, so I really think that because there's not a lot of hype around them, and their story is kind of like anyway. Um, they might end up changing that one a lot. Gender bending Sophie or something like that. I don't know yet.
I hope so.
But
Definitely.
even then,
Definitely
Like, I
sex
don't know if they
swapping
could.
who he's with, I think, is going to be like a given. If no other reason than the fact that having all 8 siblings be heterosexual is statistically improbable to the point of making these books sci fi.
Okay, you said you want to talk casting. I have
Yes.
opinions, and I want to hear yours.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
I mean, I can go first. So I saw a couple things before the show came out, and the person I saw mentioned for Kate was Adelaide Kane, and I immediately went, "Yes, I want it, and I want it now." Um, I've seen a couple other people mention. Oh, I can't remember either of their names. It's the girl that plays Yennefer in The Witcher,
Oh,
which
yeah.
isn't what I would have pictured, but I'd be willing to see it. I'd be willing to see that. Um, and then there was another girl from like a sci-fi show that was popular. I can't remember her name, but yeah, Adelaide Kane would be my pick. And I actually saw something where Adelaide Kane. I don't know if this is actually true, but I saw somewhere that Adelaide Kane had said that she was going to go audition for the part.
Mm, I would like that. From what I'm hearing, a lot of your suggestions sound like similar. Not necessarily, like, I don't necessarily have a specific person I am suggesting, although, like, I guess I like could give some examples. There's a couple things that I want to see. Number one, I think the tendency is going to be to cast a slightly older Kate in order to create this contrast of like older younger sister. And when reading the books, I kept having to like push back against it because Kate comes across as like very much like a spitfire whatever, but I think it should be very clear that she is 20 years old. She is 20 years old and her sister is like 17, 16, whatever she is. So I do not want them casting somebody too old for Kate because I think part of what makes this really interesting is when she's talking and she's being protective, she's trying to come across as older and she's going to come across as somebody who like her mother died when she was young and she was raised by her stepmother who's wonderful and she has a sister who's wonderful but she's very like protective of them, and that juxtaposition of seeing somebody who's a 20-year-old who to me because I'm a grandma seems like a baby, but like a 20-year-old kind of entering society for the first time going through all this. I think, yes, you have a question.
No, I was just saying, like 20-year-old, like we need to really remember what 20-year-olds actually look like.
Exactly. You, a small little baby. Not like literal baby. Like I don't want it to come across as like a child bride type of thing, but I think it should be like clear, you know what I mean? Like I do not want somebody who like okay, so for example, you mentioned Yennefer from The Witcher. I'm not going to know unless I look it up right this second, but in my mind like yes, love the look, whatever, but she I think is like closer to like maybe 30s. I hope I'm not reaching too far out of left field in saying that. And I want to make sure that this girl comes across as 20 so that it makes it kind of interesting that she's acting so like kind of protective and snarky and kind of frankly talking like she's a spinster before she's a spinster. I think it will make it charming. Number two, when they talk about her
I
not
agree.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say there is some level of that they're going to have to do somebody a little older because Eloise, who is supposed to be 16, the actress that plays her is 31 years old.
And I
She's the
tell
oldest of all the Bridgerton siblings.
the bangs did not hide
Yeah,
it. Like
but
I don't want that. I want
yeah,
Kate to come. Well, in the book, Kate and Eloise actually have like a couple friendship moments as well. And I'm hopeful they'll play that up a bit more in the series. And Eloise is like just entering society at the time or whatever. So Kate should come across as very close to Eloise's age. And I want that clear. It should also then follow that Edwina truly comes across as 16, 17, whatever she is. Like she should come across as like a young teenager. That's going to do a couple things. Number one, it's going to be an accurate reflection of her age. I think that's important. Number two, it's going to make her seem clearly younger than Kate, which is what she is. And it's going to kind of show this sort of like stark awkwardness of having a 16, 17-year-old entering society on the marriage market. Like, I want this show to kind of like not shy away from showing how weird that is, because that will help show how much Anthony should not be with Edwina based on age alone. Because that's something the book says, but does not really lean into why that's weird. Like, he is too old for her. And I want that to be shown on the show. Like, I want it to be like, oh, 5,000 years into your bachelorhood, you decide to get married. So you're just going to marry this season's incomparable. Well, guess what? She's going to, come across as a literal child who's, moments older than some of your youngest siblings. And she is a teen girl who wants to read books and have fun and has been forced into trying to marry for money, but is not into you and thinks you're old and doesn't find your jokes funny. You know what I mean? Like, I want him to have to come to terms with like the age
Yeah.
ramifications of what he did. And I think only by casting Kate and Edwina at like their book ages will that happen. That's my one and only real strong
Yeah.
opinion.
I think you could have like a small buffer. Like you could technically get maybe a Kate that's 25, but that's as old as you could really go for Kate, and me be okay with it. Because and even then that's
If
a
she
little
looks
old.
20,
But yeah, well, because Daphne, I would actually say looked about 20, 21, and the actress was 25.
sure. Yeah.
Um, Eloise did look older, and
Yes.
I don't like. I think the reason they hired Eloise, the girl they hired, because she really was really good at playing Eloise.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some characters that I feel their age was not correct, especially since like if they're going to have, especially since they're going to add other storylines. If they like, I want somebody that's actually an adult, but I don't see them. I don't want them to go like 25 for Edwina either.
As a point of reference, it would appear that the guy, from a quick Google search just now, the guy playing Anthony is 32, about to turn 33. And how old is Anthony in this book? Is he supposed to be about
So
that
in
age?
his book, he'd be 29.
He'd be 29. Okay. So this guy is like 3 years older than what he's supposed to be playing. I would not want the girl playing Kate to be more than about 3 years, standard deviation of 3 years from the year she's supposed to be playing. So yeah, what you're saying, 25, I
Yeah.
would drop that to like 23, 24, because that's what the book says. And I think I want that shown. I want that because that is necessary to backwards cast Edwina's age. And I don't know. I
Yeah.
see it as critical. I don't know that they're gonna do it. Like, I feel like they'll do the same thing of like cast some 30-year-old who looks 21, and it'll be like a CW situation where like somebody with a 5 o'clock shadow is playing a sophomore, but a girl can dream, I guess. Other than that, I don't care. Like, I know in the book she's supposed to be like of average height and supposed to be like average looking, whatever that means. Like, she has brown hair and is not like, Edwina, a graceful fairy or whatever, but it's supposed to be. There's a couple things they mentioned. They mentioned she's quite pale. Um, that she has flushed cheeks and lips a few times. I'm fine with whatever, like change that, make her, whatever race, body type, height, I'm not particular about, but the age piece I am particular about. That I would really like to see her close to the age they say in the book. All right. Well, you have 2 shows left and we are 1 minute over. Do you think you can cram them in a minute?
Okay, I can do it real quick.
Okay.
So, all creatures great and small is the third episode came out this week. It's this wholesome, adorable British show about this guy in the 30s. He's a vet, and so this episode was actually quite emotional. He there was parts where some of the supporting characters had to come to terms with like, their roles, such as this girl, my favorite character, has to kind of play the mother role to her young sister because their mother died, and she's dealing with that. There's the housekeeper that's kind of involved with this. There's the senior vet. He has to make some tough decisions. He wants to try to become like a racehorse veterinarian, and some things occur with that he has to really make some tough choices. The younger brother of this guy gambles away all the money that they had just earned for like the past 3 weeks, and he has to make that back by making some really shady bets because he knows that the winning racehorse, like the projected to win racehorse, had just been euthanized by the big thing. He, the main character James, had to make this really tough call and euthanize um, the biggest named racehorse at the time. And the other big part of it is the guy that owns this racehorse is the fiance of the girl he has a crush on. So it's a really big conflict of interest as well. So it so for just like a quaint little show, it had a lot of moral dilemmas and fun, and it was really emotional. I was really invested in it. And then the other show I watched this week was Disenchantment. It's like that Simpsons, but in medieval times show. It's
Yeah.
fun, it's funny, it's whatever, and I caught up on that.
Both of those are ones I want to watch. See, and I knew about both of these before I caved and watched Married at First Sight. So really, I knew better and I had the tools to be better, and I chose not to be better. That's okay, though. Okay, the last thing on the
It's like I
agenda.
offer you this nutritious meal and a cake, and you knowingly chose the cake when you knew it was not the right choice to make.
But it was cake. What was I supposed to do?
Eat the dinner that I named you, Cammie.
I will. I'm just gonna eat the cake first.
Mm.
So, the last thing I have on the agenda was the Good Doctor slash Salty Corner. Basically, me being mad about 2 shows of the week. The Good Doctor, I had them on, pardon my language, thin fucking ice ever since they killed Melendez. And then I was like, oh, it's fine. I'll stay. I'll stay. You want to know why I'll stay? I'll stay because of these two. These two right here, Sean and Leah. See them? They're so cute. I've got one good ship. That's good enough reason. Like, I've watched shows for less. I've watched shows when I only like one character and not even that much. Like, anyways, in this week, they kind of had them get through like this really rough time of like basically him meeting her parents and her parents don't approve it. It was like a whole thing. It was great. They handled it so like maturely and it was like wonderful. And I was like, I am glad I stayed for these two. They were wonderful. And then they had the preview for next week and they're bringing in a cheating storyline. And I want to flip this table, slam my hands on the table that I just flipped. I'm mad. You hate to see it. I don't know why they would do that. if you never hear about the show again, it's because they decided to kill me, bury me, and then bring me back and put me back in my coffin so they can lower me down one last time. Let me down, whatever that phrase is. I'm incensed. Then we have The Bachelor. I'm not even going to put up a picture. I'm just so disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. I expect so little of this godforsaken show, and they somehow don't meet my expectations despite that. They brought in some new women this week. That's fine. We get it. He's only vibing with like two girls, and it's not the ones you wanted him to vibe with. Like, whatever, producers. They brought in new girls. Can't even complain. Four of them were completely forgettable, but one of them is really, really great. Love her. I want her to win. If she doesn't win, I want her to be the next bachelorette. So, like, I win either way, right? It's great. Her name is Michelle. We love Michelle. She's like a teacher. She had some like really good things to say about like social justice and was really sweet talking about her students. And he and her bonded over them both knowing this Maya Angelou quote. And it was like one of the only times that he's ever seemed like he had like two brain cells in the last episode. So it was great. Love her. But the way they're editing everything, they're like basically cut it. Like, I get it. They're going to highlight the drama. Of course, they're going to highlight the drama. However, here's the thing, there's like 20 plus girls on the show right now, so there's drama to pick from. Like, you don't have to highlight one particular drama storyline. There are other things, like you can show some girl having a mental breakdown, you can show two girls bickering over their room assignments, whatever. Instead, they decided to show this girl like basically slut shaming this new girl, being like, she's an escort, she entertains men for money or whatever, which was A, entirely just speculation, and B, it was just like, this is, first of all, this is 2020. Like, I thought we don't like hate on that kind of thing. Like, did I miss a memo? I felt like we evolved past this. Like, why did we go back to like 2012 using this like slut and whore type of language? Number two, did you guys forget where you are? You are in a house full of 20 women, and you are all getting a check per week to entertain a man. So I don't know how you are sitting there getting paid to sit, like, to try to get a man interested in you. You are getting paid to be in, you know, slinky little dresses and look naked in a hot tub and wear bikinis, wear lingerie, like this whole thing. Like, we see it, we know what clothes you brought, whatever, and you're getting paid to do it, and you have a man barely interested. But like, if we would like, and I'm not judging you for it, I'm watching you for it. But you want to sit here and talk about women entertaining men for money when you're literally doing, like, you're literally doing that. Like, you're literally doing that unsuccessfully at that. Like, the absolute audacity. And that was like the dramatic storyline of the whole episode, is a bunch of girls being like, oh, she might be an escort, like she goes to clubs with like all the rich men and basically does bottle service for them. So basically they're speculating that like she gets paid money to like look hot at like after hours client meetings, essentially, whatever, which is like a whole market. I get it, like, whatever. I've watched what was that one show that was about that kind of thing? Whatever. But like, if you want to judge that, you better be sitting on a farm, like pregnant barefoot in a kitchen, married to some guy who wears suspenders. Cause like, you're sitting here in like a glass house without, like, I'm getting all my metaphors mixed up, but like the absolute audacity to be hating on this girl for doing exactly what you're trying to do. Exactly what you're trying to do. Okay, salty Cammie corner over. We're 10 minutes overtime. I'm going to get us out of here. I just had to get it out of my system. Watch The Bachelor regardless. It's really good this season, except for the girls that are about to get sent home next episode. And then it's going to get even better. I swear. I promise.
You can keep telling me that. I'm going to keep shaking my head, Cammie.
I have predictions of who I think the top four are.
I mean, you can tell me. I won't know a single person.
I had to redo my predictions because all of my initial four have gone home already, 100%. But Michelle has jumped up to top final four for me. I have Bree still up there, even though she didn't get a lot of airtime this last week. She did get a first impression rose, or like a group date rose, I think. I think he's vibing hard with Rachel just because like this one moment I saw where like essentially he's in a room with all the women and he was trying to verify some information and he was kind of caught off guard, so he wasn't really like performing for the camera for a second, and he turns to Rachel and he's like, wait, for real? Because like they were all saying something, but he turns just to her to verify it. And it was just like, if you ever watch like human behavior, like it wasn't a romantic moment at all, but it was like a bunch of people are talking at once and he turns to one person to verify it, like, and it wasn't about her, but like as in he like basically only trusted her to like speak common sense or whatever. I was like, oh, hold on, what's going on here? Like, I'm getting a vibe. Anyways, so Bree, Michelle, Rachel, and I want to say Abigail might still make it far. That was the deaf girl, but we'll see. They haven't vibed in a while, but every time they're in the same room, they vibe. So we'll see how that goes. There's a few others. Piper, I think, is also up there, but I'm putting Abigail in top 4 for now. Okay, now we're 12 minutes over. I'm going to get us out of here. Thank you for staying late with me to talk about The Bachelor.
No problem.
It'll go away eventually. I will see
And then it'll
you.
come back in.
Yes, it will. You're right. I will see you next week. Have a good week.